And so, my friends, it is with humility, determination, and boundless confidence in America's promise that I accept your nomination for President of the United States.
As Hillary Clinton became the first woman to accept a major party's nomination for U.S. president, faith leaders were among those moved by the historical significance of the moment.
That this day has come is a tribute to all the women that went before us.
Sister Simone Campbell is leader of the Network Lobby's Nuns on the Bus project, a group of Catholic sisters who traveled by bus to both conventions advocating for economic justice. Here in Philadelphia, they got permission to park their bus inside the security perimeter next to the convention arena. In both cities, they pulled wagons through the streets, passing out lemonade and initiating conversations about key issues.
The income and wealth disparity in our nation that's tearing us apart, the anger, the fear, the judgmentalness, the racism that we've seen in our country, it's tearing holes in the fabric of our society. Can we step together into a future as opposed to pulling apart for partisan gain?
The nuns were part of the large number of religious representatives who came to Philadelphia this week to speak out for their values and beliefs. In recent decades, Democrats have battled the perception that they are not favorable toward religion. Democratic Convention Committee CEO Leah Daughtry, who's also a Protestant pastor, believes this convention will help shatter that idea.
I'm a witness, an actual living witness, along with so many millions of others, that our faith is part of what drives us to the Democratic Party. The values of community, of sharing, of caring for one another, and for lifting up every boat, even those that are stuck at the bottom and those that are coasting along the top.
On Sunday, the convention organized an interfaith gathering where representatives of several religions read from sacred texts and offered prayers and blessings. And there was some rousing gospel music. During the week, the Democratic Faith Council held special panel discussions about religion and politics. Reverend Derek Harkins of Union Theological Seminary in New York led faith outreach for the DNC in the last election. He says Democrats are continuing to do a better job connecting with their religious constituencies.
There are particular relationships that we really do need to foster and care for in terms of with faith communities and faith leaders. And I think we're on the way, but I think there's definitely room for added emphasis.
As is traditional for both parties, every session of the convention opened and closed with prayers from a diverse range of religious leaders. During his speech on Wednesday, vice presidential nominee Tim Kaine hit many spiritual themes and spoke extensively about the importance of his Roman Catholic faith and his missionary work in Central America. Many faith-based delegates were pleased by his addition to the ticket.
He's someone that has really made his message be clear about how, as a Catholic, he understands the political process and understands that that has guided him into politics.
Clinton is a lifelong United Methodist. In her acceptance speech Thursday, she quoted a well-known Methodist motto she often repeats:
Do all the good you can, for all the people you can, in all the ways you can, as long as ever you can.
Many Democrats have been urging Clinton to talk more about her faith.
Hillary Clinton is a great Methodist, and they don't talk about it. I mean, that's the irony of this. She really does live her faith, but her faith, even more than a Catholic, calls her to be quiet, reserved, but to be integrated in it. And I think we see it in her values, and that's what we've got to look at.
One of Clinton's closest spiritual influences is senior advisor Bernd Strider, a Baptist. He shares what he calls a daily time of devotion and reflection with her. They focus on a passage from the Bible or a spiritual book.
It can be daunting at times. Her questions are always deep, if she has one, but so are her insights.
Strider says he sees Clinton's faith reflected in her care for others. He told me about one recent campaign stop where some veterans' families approached the candidate for help. She directed Strider to make a file and then kept following up.
I'm trying to elect a president, and she has me doing casework. And That's the president that'll be sitting in the Oval Office. She has the capacity to work on the big pictures and see the personal needs. She lives her public life in the macro and the micro.
Americans have long said they want a president with strong religious beliefs, but the numbers are dropping. In a new Pew survey, 62% of all Americans said it is important to them, but that's down from more than 70% in 2008. And among Democrats, just over half said it's important to them.
People who describe themselves as having no particular religion make up one of the fastest growing Democratic voting blocs. In the last election, about 1 in 4 Obama voters was religiously unaffiliated. It can be tricky reaching out to those voters while not alienating religious blocs. Many here said the faith community cannot be taken for granted.
Mobilization is key, critical, and crucial, and mobilization oftentimes happens incredibly well as it emanates out of faith communities. Certainly in the Black church, oftentimes the nexus of a neighborhood, of a community. So mobilizing people to get to the polls so that they can exercise their franchise. We've got to make that a priority this time around. The stakes are just so high.
While religious liberals praised the progressive party platform adopted here, some Democratic delegates expressed concern that other positions on social issues were not recognized. The group Democrats for Life is urging its party to be more inclusive of what it calls a whole life view that opposes both the death penalty and abortion.
It's time for urban Christians, it's time for Christians in general to say, hold up, we're a part of this party too. You need to hear how we feel on this issue and really give us your ear.
Other groups also feel some tension in the party. Former President Bill Clinton tried to reach out to Muslims in his speech, but ended up insulting some when he said, quote, "If you're a Muslim and you love America and freedom and you hate terror, we want you." Some Muslims felt that implied their love of America and opposition to terror should be questioned. First-time Florida delegate Ghazala Salam admits her party still has some work to do.
They need to speak to us like we are Americans, like we are part of this. And I think sometimes politicians speak to what is the popular rhetoric or respond to the popular rhetoric, and that's not always the right thing to do.
Salam says Donald Trump's rhetoric, including his calls for a ban on Muslims traveling to the U.S., has mobilized a record number of Muslims to get involved in politics.
2016 is a wake-up call for the Muslim community who has been here for so long, to say we need to be more proactive so that next election cycle or the next major candidate that comes along does not use us, in the way that we're being used to create hate and fear.
At an interfaith prayer breakfast, participants discussed how to challenge anti-Muslim rhetoric and to work for the common good. Throughout the campaign season, many religious groups have been raising alarms about the level of negative rhetoric by candidates and their supporters.
We're at a point where, I'll just say it, one of the candidates, Donald Trump, is running a campaign of division where he's actively trying to exploit the divisions within the country and tapping into people's fear.
The group Christian Democrats of America has launched a new campaign called Christians Against Trump, Christians Against Hate.
Hate is not a Christian value, and if you are a Christian, then your commitment should be about what did Jesus preach, and it was love, it was compassion, and it was love for everybody. It was a message of tolerance and of accepting people.
The American Jewish Committee was one of several groups that held issue briefings at both conventions. The AJC's Jason Isaacson said he worries about the international impact of the current negative political atmosphere.
It sends a terrible message to our own people and a terrible message around the world of what America stands for. We lead not just because of our military strength, but because of our moral example.
Still, many religious leaders here urged Americans not to give up on hope.
As long as we think the current reality is the given, we won't be able to move forward. So I'm encouraging people to stand up, be the leaders we're waiting for, and work for change.
And whether Americans ultimately see the Clinton-Kaine ticket as an agent for positive change may help determine the outcome in November. I'm Kim Lawton in Philadelphia.